I mean, I totally get that women are hypergamous and they seek better quality men, and I think from an evolutionary perspective, you must want that to be the case, because if women selected the lowest quality men, what that would do to the species over a period of time would be disastrous. So I completely get that is a necessary function in all sexually selective species. So I get that. The issue is that 500 years ago, that meant selecting the best guy in the village that you could get hold of. With the dating app market, that means selecting the best guy from his best photos within 20 miles who might actually be asleep at the time that you're looking. And we've got this weird phenomenon with dating apps where, 10% of the men are sharing disproportionately basically any of the women that they want. I mean, I know a guy, fabulously good looking, nice chap. He looks like he's been AI generated. And if you ask him about Tinder, he says, yeah, I completed it. He went through something like 600 dates over the space of a 2-year period, and then just eventually one day decided on board of this, and he basically just settled down with the next one, which is random and funny, but that is how this sexual market works today. And women seem okay with this arrangement, which to my mind seems a bit odd. So what's going on there?
Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, I will pick you up that it's not about what's good for the species. So the way evolution works, it works on the currency of reproduction, and that's actually really important. So it can produce a social system, a mating system that can be ghastly by any, by any moral evaluation. What will be selected for is what makes individuals reproduce at the level of the individual, regardless of what is then the sort of emergent social system that comes from all of these different individuals behaving the way they've been selected to behave. The system you get then emerges from that and then creates its own system within which these individuals behave, and that determines what is reproductively favourable and what is not, and therefore that determines what gets selected. So it's definitely not about, women prefer men because this is going to increase the overall quality of the population of humans. Women prefer particular men and men prefer particular women because that will improve the overall quality of their own offspring. That's how that works. And that's important to keep in mind, because it's not a trivial distinction. There are situations when you're thinking about what are the selection pressures on mate choice and mating behaviour, where distinguishing between what's good for the individual, what will promote an individual's reproductive success, versus what is good for the reproductive success of the entire population. Those two things can become decoupled. Okay. And in fact, with birth rates declining as they are, they're decoupled right now in our society. So that's an important distinction. The second question about, which we'll come back to, I'm sure, but the second question about the dating apps, I'm not quite sure that a couple of things that you said are exactly quite right. So I'm not sure that women being happy about the situation on the dating apps is necessarily quite true. To some extent they are, because there are far more men on these dating apps than there are women on these dating apps. So your friend, Mr. AI generated perfect, is not representative of the male experience on dating apps.
No, certainly not.
Yeah, that's right. The representative male experience is that they can't get a date in spite of swiping. I will admit now that I don't know which direction you have to swipe to accept or reject, but in spite of swiping in the right direction, a large number of women, they won't actually go on any dates. Whereas women have the opposite experience in a lot of senses, in that women, because they're in very short supply, so there's a huge skewed operational sex ratio in these dating apps. Women are in very short supply. That makes them in high demand. So of course women can go on as many dates as they want, but a few people, including a colleague of mine, have done some research looking at the types of people that tend to be on dating apps, and the types of women that tend to be on dating apps are highly neurotic, women with poor self-esteem, and the men that tend to be on these dating apps, your friend excluded, the men that tend to be on these dating apps are also disproportionately manipulative and narcissistic. So dating apps are not necessarily, they're not necessarily a happy place, and the people on them are not necessarily happy people, and they're not necessarily there because they're having a good time.
Right.
So, yeah, and they're not representative as much as we often bemoan, with some justification, the, sort of electronification of our social lives and the sort of the loss of that organic social interaction. I don't think dating apps actually necessarily encapsulate a nice representative sort of snapshot of the human mating market as it currently stands. I think it's skewed in a lot of ways.
Okay. Do you think the role of dating apps is overstated then? Because I mean, I'm very old now, but when I kind of look at what these Zoomers are doing, you kind of get the impression it's all dating apps. Is that not the case?
I wish I had more concrete, up-to-date data to be able to say with more certainty, but I don't think that is the case. Right. I think it, much like lots of things, like you say, that we see on the influencers on Instagram and the people that do it, they do create this impression of the world. But it's important to remember, especially for probably, I suspect you're a bit like me, spend a little bit too much time in this online world, that it is something of a bubble. We who live in this online world quite a lot are also not a representative sample of the broader human population. And I think sometimes it's a little bit easy to get caught up in what we're perceiving and assume that is a pretty good representation of what's going on. I think it's probably not. I still think that, physical interactions are the fundamental basis of relationship formation, and people might meet each other through dating apps. But as even the story of your friend goes, he finished Tinder, right? So he went through every single person on there and eventually settled down with one of them. So even his story is that, of 599 of his 600 experiences did not result in a successful relationship. So I think online, well, depends on your measure of success. But it's not how I think the majority of healthy, functioning, long-term relationships actually get started.
If you would like to see the full version of this premium video, please head over to lotuseaters.com and subscribe to gain full access to all of our premium content.